Com. Everything you need for anything you drive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
History is not on the side of the Miami Heat. 36 teams have been down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and only one has fought back to win the championship. LeBron did it in 2016 when he was with Cleveland. He helped the Cavs bounce back and beat Golden State for the title. The Denver Nuggets are up 3-1 on Miami, and they're at home tonight for Game 5. Everything is in the Nuggets' favor to close it out and win the first championship in the franchise's 56-year history. Tip-off tonight at 5:30 on ABC. The WNBA is considering major changes in how their teams travel after Brittany Griner was harassed over the weekend inside the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. The slumping Dodgers are back in L.A. after a 2-4 road trip. They are 2-6 in their last 8 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere in the world, but only if you download our app right now, please, at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to go and get the podcast and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, a conversation with Pulitzer Prize-winning author Hector Tobar about the 21st century Latino experience and identity. In Tobar's latest book, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino, he navigates the complex landscape surrounding the term Latino, and a great deal more about the intricate layers of racial and ethnic identity in the modern United States. Pulitzer Prize winner Hector Tobar in Hour 2. Look forward to that conversation. I hope you do as well. So many of us are often perplexed by whether we use the term Hispanic, Latino, Latinx. A great conversation with this Pulitzer Prize winner, Hector Tobar, about his new book in Hour 2. In our third hour, the award-winning documentary Americand, love that title, Americand shines a spotlight on a nation marked by radicalization and economic disparity, revealing the alarming effects of wealth redistribution, with over $50 trillion transferred from the bottom 90% to the top 1% over the past 4 decades. A conversation with Time 100 recipient and founder and president of the Amazon Labor Union, Chris Smalls, and the film's director, Sean Claffey, in Hour 3. In this first hour today, though, 2 conversations on the B side of this hour, a dialogue with Harvard Law professor Randall Kennedy about the recurring accusations of reverse discrimination and unfair preferences that have accompanied every major step towards addressing racial subordination and promoting equality in America, as we await a likely decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to strike down affirmative action, a key civil rights era pathway to achieve the American dream. Professor Kennedy has authored a powerful piece entitled, "Truth Is, Many Americans Just Don't Want Black Folk to Get Ahead." Randy Kennedy on the B side of this hour. But we commence today's program with our regular contributor, Connie Rice, to help us unpack the 37-count federal indictment of former President Donald Trump, unsealed on Friday. As if you didn't know, it's been news all weekend about this indictment, which we expected when we told you days ago that he and his attorneys had been informed that he was, in fact, the target of this investigation. Surprise, surprise. Connie Rice, good to have you back. How are you today?
On Valium. I read this indictment and I had to ask a doctor for a Valium prescription.
What about the indictment brought that on?
Oh, Tavis.
Yeah.
Very few things can shut me up. Just ask my brother.
Yeah.
I was speechless, dumbfounded. Okay, so let's get the lawyer, these stuff out of the way. He's presumed innocent.
Mm-hmm.
These are allegations. He is presumed innocent until proven in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt with facts and, proof that he did this stuff. But if the indictment is to be believed,
yes,
and if it's proven, let's forget about all the Espionage Act, legal jumbo about obstruction and all of the conspiracy. Let me just break it down.
Mm-hmm.
If the indictment is correct, this man, he stole nuclear secrets. Let me say that again. He stole nuclear secrets of the United States of America and lied about it to the FBI to keep them.
Mm.
He stole satellite keyhole sources of information. This is how the military satellite information, and he lied to the FBI, he lied to his lawyers, he lied to everybody in order to keep these documents that belong to the American people. He stole war defense plans, what we would do in a war with Iran, and lied to keep the documents. He stole documents that talked about our allies' vulnerabilities in nuclear war and our military capabilities and vulnerabilities. Tavis, Aldrin Ames and Robert Hansen, the 2 biggest spies of the 20th century, didn't do this much damage in terms of potential of what these kinds of documents could have done and may have done. So let's just be clear about what this is not about documents. It is about the national security of the United States. And if you don't have to take it from me when I'm on Valium, so maybe you shouldn't take it from me, but take it from William Barr, former President Trump's former Attorney General, who twisted the Mueller report into an exoneration, who defended Trump through the first impeachment. There was nothing that man wouldn't do to corrupt the Department of Justice to defend Trump when he was president. Now, he was on Sunday, one of the few Republicans, on Sunday on fraudcaster Fox News, and he said that if half of these allegations are true, Trump is toast, that these were direct. These are not his words, these are my words. These documents form a dagger at the throat of the national security of the United States. This is not minor stuff. And to hear the Republicans, I call it the grievance and outlaw party, the GOP, or the grifters and outlaw party, they're on TV, Graham, all of the Republican leaders, some of them, well, let me say the majority of them, not Mitch McConnell coming, but talking about, we know he stole nuclear, he may have stolen nuclear secrets, but what about Hunter Biden's toothbrush? What about Hillary Clinton's wedding invitations on her emails? Mm-hmm. So anyway, this is super serious stuff. It is just astonishing.
Yeah, it didn't take Connie long, as I say all the time. Nobody turns a phrase like Connie Miles got in my ear and says, "I love it." Fraudcaster. Fraudcaster. That's what Fox News is. Only Connie Rice. Just getting started with Connie. There's a great deal more to unpack. And I think what you hear Connie saying, frankly, forthrightly and boldly and correctly, is that everybody who has read this indictment, as I have, is just gobsmacked by how much worse it is than we thought. We thought he stole some documents. We knew that part at least. But it's so much worse than anybody initially thought. More when we come forward with Connie Rice in a moment. It's June, Black Music Month. We continue as we do every day during Black Music Month, featuring the music of a particular and iconic African-American artist. Today's artist in residence is the one and only, the Empress of Soul, Gladys Knight.
Long as I can feel the presence of another woman. Still, when you speak my name, it's just not the same. Oh, baby, I'm losing you. I can tell. It's in the air. It's everywhere. Oh, baby, I'm losing you.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Are you looking for some fun and entertainment this Father's Day weekend? Can't figure out what gift to give the men in your life? No worries. Our entertainment presents Dance with My Father. Terry Steele, a tribute to Luther Vandross. Elaine Gibbs, a tribute to Aretha Franklin. Visit Eventbrite now. Dance with My Father. June 17th. General admission is $60. VIP, $75. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Showtime is at 7:30 p.m. Taking place at the beautiful Fine Arts Theater in Beverly Hills, 8556 Wilshire Boulevard. For ticket information, visit Eventbrite or call Isidore at 323-351-7662. 323-351-7662. Bring the family out and let's celebrate. 323-351-7662.
Big tobacco cigarette butts filter practically nothing and are made of microplastics that are toxic and cunning. More than 15,000 fibers lurk in every cigarette butt you see. Could they harm your families? Quite possibly. They could end up inside of you, your bodies, their prey. New studies even indicate possible links to mutations in DNA. An evil lie with a future's worth of harm. To the world, now you know, so sound the alarm. Learn more at undo.org.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley, recipient of the highest honor in the talk radio industry, the coveted Freedom of Speech Award. at Talkers 2023. Let's get back to more of Tavis right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
I was born and raised in the slums of the city. It was a one-room shack that slept 10 other children.
It's the music of Gladys Knight, all 3 hours of today's program as we celebrate the artistic genius of Gladys Knight. We'll start with the early stuff, Gladys and the Pips, and move through the next 3 hours playing some of her solo stuff. But we're going to just give some love to Gladys Knight today as we celebrate June, being Black Music Month. And I can't imagine the soundtrack of my life without Gladys Knight on it. How about you? That said, we continue our conversation now with our regular contributor, the towering public intellectual Connie Rice, as we tried to understand better what Donald Trump did when he stole these documents. A 37-count bombshell federal indictment unsealed on Friday, 37 felonies, including 31 counts under the Espionage Act of willful retention of classified records. You heard Connie earlier starting to break this down. Connie, how about the point I made a moment ago? I'm just watching. I want to make the most of our time between now and the bottom of the hour before we get to Randall Kennedy. The point I made a moment ago that everybody seems to have made, which is that this is so much worse than you and I expected or thought initially.
You're absolutely right. It's the intensity and the severity of the classifications of the documents, that some of the documents were so highly classified they can't even tell you what the classification was. So it is top secret, at least 22 of top secret, and way above that. It's also the fact that it's Trump's words from his rallies, from his interviews, from his audio tapes where he actually confesses, I know I shouldn't have these documents. They're classified. They're secret. I used to be able to declassify them when I was president, but I can't now. But I'm going to tell you about this document anyway. So he published at least to two people, staffers and fundraisers and who knew who else. It was the incredibly reckless and irresponsible way that after he put these documents in boxes, directed them to be put on the plane. This is, of course, again, allegations. They have to be proven. So he's presumed innocent. But if the indictment is correct, this wasn't some accident. These documents didn't just drop into a box that ended up at Mar-a-Lago. He actually selected, directed, and then after they were taken down to Bedminster and to Mar-a-Lago, apparently, he instructed his staff to make sure that his lawyers and the FBI could not find them after he told the archives, National Archives, no, you can't have these documents back. They're mine. And then after he lied and shuffled the boxes around to make sure that nobody could find them, and the FBI comes with a search warrant to say, you know what, you are intentionally withholding these documents. We know you have them because your staff has told us you have them, and we're coming to search. Then he launches a violent reaction that actually gets somebody killed in the Midwest trying to attack an FBI. You remember all of that drama around the search warrant of Mar-a-Lago. So when you take this all together, it's the fact that it's in his words. You don't see indictments. And I talked to about 8 of my friends who are federal prosecutors. They said they have never seen an indictment like this because it's mostly the accused, the defendant's words, Trump's words, through everything he said on tape at his rallies and so forth. But it's also, it was so bad that not only that, he asked his lawyers, can we just lie about the fact that we have the documents? Can we destroy the documents? And that's how the judge in D.C. said, you know what? He actually enlisted his lawyers in a crime. We're going to pierce attorney-client privilege. And that's why in this indictment, another extraordinary factor of it is that you have the lawyer's notes and lawyer's words, because he was so corrupt in how he tried to keep these documents that a judge said you can pierce attorney-client privilege. This is extraordinary, Tavis. Most of the prosecutors I talked to, all of them have said, never before and never again will you see an indictment like this. Read it.
It is extraordinary. And to your earlier point, the fraudcaster, not the broadcaster, the fraudcaster, Fox News, is still, spinning it as it will, or not giving the amount of coverage that other networks are, number one. Number two, the other point you made earlier, is that there have been few Republicans, and I do mean few, who have come out and demanded and insisted that he get out of the race right now for president. And to your point, we've never seen anything like it, and we likely never will again. I mean, it's stunning. Again, I said earlier, gobsmack is the only word I can think of when I got a chance to get into it and see exactly what he stole. To your point, nuclear secrets and beyond. And yet, Republicans are still circling the wagons. How do you read that? Because you can't steal anything worse than nuclear secrets, and they're still circling the wagons. How do you read that?
Because we no longer have a political party in the GOP. What we have is a corrupt enabler of a corrupt authoritarian. And once a political party becomes captured and hijacked by an authoritarian, the elite leaders of that political organ, that party, they strike what historians of tyranny call the authoritarian bargain. And that means that they will defend all corruption of the leader to whom they now place their loyalty above all else, including the welfare of their children, including the security of the country, including the Constitution. They have circled the wagons to defend a sexual assault civil conviction. They have defended violent insurrection. They have defended, blackmailing Ukraine to get political dirt. They have defended every corruption of every constitutional principle, the Constitution itself, and criminal law. Why? Because once you back an authoritarian who has distorted reality so that a third of the public believes lies over truth, they become complicit. And so they're not just defending a corrupt liar and authoritarian, they are defending their identity. And what he has done in a more masterful way, probably we haven't seen since the Weimar Republic in World War II, is the ability to whip lies and grievance into a distorted reality so that there's Earth One, where you and I and normal Americans, the 80% of Americans who think that stealing nuclear secrets endangers national security. Well, on Earth Two, in MAGA Nutland, stealing nuclear secrets is okay because he's done it. So that's what it means, Tavis. And this, you've gotten to the heart of the real. It's yes, we can be we should be gobsmacked by stealing nuclear secrets in this way. But what's really gobsmacking is that 64% of Republicans don't think this is a problem. That's where we are. That's the frame we are in.
As Connie Rice always says, get your frame right, and we are trying to make sure in this moment that we get our frame right. A few other notes to add to this conversation. Some of the charges, including the conspiracy and concealment counts, carry a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. So maximum of 20 years on some of these 37 felony counts he has now been indicted on. As for Donald Trump, he has said continually that he denies any wrongdoing in this case. He maintained that stance on Friday, writing on his Truth social media post, and I quote, "Under the Presidential Records Act, I'm allowed to do all this," close quote. He then criticized Jack Smith, calling him a Trump hater, a deranged psycho that should not be involved in any case having to do with justice. Those are the words of your former president, Donald Trump. A couple other things right quick. You mentioned the insurrection that these Republicans have circled the wagons on for a couple of years now, it seems. But there's increased talk of violence, Connie. I was just, not surprised, but just disappointed, for lack of a better word, by the calls for violence from many of his supporters. I read a number of posts where his supporters were saying that this nonsense is not going to stop until they start seeing bodies stack up. It's time to get violent. That this nonsense is not going to stop until they start seeing bodies stack up. I have not as yet this morning seen poll numbers as to whether he's gotten a bump because of this indictment on Friday, but I've certainly seen numbers that his fundraising has gone through the roof once again. So his fundraising is up. His poll numbers will likely go up while his supporters call for violence and bodies stacking up. Your thoughts?
Well, we saw what happened when he called for violence to keep Biden out of office and to stop the peaceful transfer of power. And we had a violent insurrection in which at least 5 cops died, 137 people were hospitalized. So they've been stacking up the bodies. They're just going to get reignited, like they. But it's not going to be a systemic reignition. It's probably going to be lone wolves. That's what the FBI is thinking right now. Mm-hmm. But more to the point that you were raising before the break, Tavis, when you were talking about the amount of time that he's got to be convicted first. Mm-hmm. And the judge who did somersaults and backward triple lutzes to give his lawyers every chance to and indulged every stupid argument about prosecutorial misconduct. That judge has now been assigned this trial, and that judge, Eileen Cannon, can do a lot to sort of tip the balance in a hung jury. She'll preside over the speed of the trial. She can slow it down. Mm-hmm. She can limit the evidence. She can actually reverse the piercing of attorney-client privilege and knock out that evidence. She can make it difficult for the prosecution to present safely highly classified documents by saying, no, you've got to out them, and then they can't use the documents. But here's the thing I really feel. Yes, she can mess with this thing in a lot of ways. Through pretrial motions and the pace of she can accommodate all of his election campaigning stuff. I know he has a rally this day. We'll postpone X, Y, and Z hearing. Here's the thing that I really fear. If she goes all out to tip the scales in favor of Trump the way she did with the search warrant, there's a rule called Rule 29, 2 areas. If he's convicted, she can preside over sentencing. She could just decide not to apply the guidelines and just say, we're not sentencing a former president. Mm-hmm. Or she can entertain a motion under Rule 29 and direct an acquittal. And if she directs an acquittal, that decision cannot be reviewed by the 11th Circuit. So I'm concerned about the actual process of the trial under Judge Eileen Cannon if she keeps the case. And that's just what I would worry about right now.
Well, those are legitimate worries. In the 90 seconds I have left here, then what? In light of what you just said, what do we expect from his court appearance tomorrow, Tuesday?
Well, a magistrate judge will arraign him. He'll be fingerprinted, photographed. The big issue there will be: does he have to surrender his passport or his passports, because he has several, and then setting the first hearing dates. So. That's all that will happen, but there's a security issue. They've got to probably take him through a tunnel. It'll be in Miami, in the Southern District of Florida, federal court, and you've got the U.S. Marshals, the Secret Service, you've got Miami-Dade Police Department, and so forth. It's going to be there. We expect to see more demonstrations outside the courtroom than you did when he was arraigned in New York for the the damages from the documents that he had that had damaged the New York election. That trial by Alvin Bragg.
Yep. We will spend a lot of time, I suspect, in the coming weeks and months talking about this, because there has never, in the history of this republic, never been anything quite like what we are witnessing and experiencing in real time right now. It's a civics lesson on a number of different levels. And so expect to hear the voice of Connie Rice routinely. And who better to unpack this for us than Connie Rice as we go down this rabbit hole, as it were, in the next number of months. Connie, good to have you on. We'll talk again soon. I promise you. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for your time. After news, traffic, and sports, we'll talk to Professor Randall Kennedy of Harvard about what he calls the truth. And the truth is that many Americans just don't want to see black folk get ahead. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Would break my heart in two. So darling, don't let her take your love from me. Don't let her take your love from me. I'm begging you, baby. No, don't you let her, please don't let her, take your love from me.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
We'd like to thank you for sharing a part of your Monday, June 12th with us here on the Black Information Network. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest. More than 40 million Americans from Denver, Colorado to Charlotte, North Carolina are under the threat of severe weather this week. The storms could bring hail, winds of up to 70 miles per hour, and possible tornadoes. The University of Alabama has been integrated for 60 years, an historic date that was remembered this weekend on campus. The university's Black Alumni Association hosted the program as part of a reunion ceremony. A relative of one of the two black students who entered the university in 1963, while then Governor George Wallace stood in front of the doors of the university to symbolically try to block their entrance, attended yesterday's ceremonies. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Summit Racing wants you to gear up your truck or Jeep for your next off-road camping adventure. With millions of parts in stock, you'll find off-road and outdoor essentials so you can camp confidently and comfortably. SummitRacing.com. Everything you need for anything you drive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
History is not on the side of the Miami Heat. 36 teams have been down 3-1 in the NBA Finals, and only one has fought back to win the championship. LeBron did it in 2016 when he was with Cleveland. He helped the Cavs bounce back and beat Golden State for the title. The Denver Nuggets are up 3-1 on Miami, and they're at home tonight for Game 5. Everything is in the Nuggets' favor to close it out and win the first championship in the franchise's 56-year history. Tip-off tonight at 5:30 on ABC. The WNBA is considering major changes in how their teams travel after Brittany Griner was harassed over the weekend inside the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. The slumping Dodgers are back in L.A. after a 2-4 road trip. They are 2-6 in their last 8 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though?
Everybody in the house, make some noise!
Is there a better day of the year to celebrate the anniversary of the only unapologetically progressive talk station west of the Mississippi, focused on issues that impact the black community?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We think not. A station that amplifies black voices like yours with hosts and guests who look and sound like you. Celebrating our second anniversary on Juneteenth. We're KBLA Talk 1580. And you ain't seen nothing yet. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead Community Development and National Partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility, not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like for the individual?
It's home ownership, it's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community, and it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Aisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley. That's Gladys Knight. We are celebrating June as Black Music Month, and every day this month on our program we're playing the music of a towering black artist all 3 hours of our program, and today we are celebrating the rich musical legacy of one Gladys Knight. In this hour, the Supreme Court will soon likely strike down a key civil rights era pathway to achieve the American dream. We call it affirmative action. A corrective program, to be sure. Continuing, of course, the historical pattern of opposition and resistance, that is, surrounding policies aimed at advancing the rights and opportunities of African Americans in these United States. This ain't a new story. It's an old story, in fact. Distinguished legal scholar, author, and professor at Harvard Law School, Randall Kennedy, joins us now to unpack the recurring accusations of reverse discrimination and unfair preferences that have accompanied every major step towards addressing racial subordination and promoting equality. We take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. You know the story. As I said, it ain't a new story. I also hope to examine in this half hour the viability of some of these so-called race-neutral alternatives and the potential challenges they may face. Professor Kennedy wrote a provocative piece that I saw and reached out to him right away to get him on to talk about it. He wrote a piece for the New York Times, and the title was, "Truth is, many Americans just don't want black people to get ahead." The truth is, many Americans just don't want to see black folk get ahead. I'm pleased to welcome to this program Harvard Law Professor, Randall Kennedy. Randall Kennedy, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, and thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you back, man. It's been too long. Good to hear your voice, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you for these 30 minutes, and thank you for this piece. We could spend hours just unpacking what you had to say. But let me just start broad, and we'll narrow our way, trying to make the most of these few minutes that we have. My sense is, I assume it's your sense, everybody who I've talked to has the same sense, that it's just a matter of time before this decision comes down, and we expect affirmative action as we have known it to end. As you well know, in the month of June, we get these decisions released every so often, and it's already fascinating to me that the affirmative action decision has not come out yet, but we know it's coming. I assume that we are in agreement that affirmative action is toast?
Well, the Supreme Court is going to try to make it toast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a difference between what the Supreme Court tries to do and what it actually can accomplish. I suspect that the Supreme Court will rule against affirmative action, both on constitutional grounds and on statutory grounds. It'll probably happen this week. I bet that Thursday morning,
mm-hmm.
I bet that the Supreme Court is going to come out with its decision against my home institution, Harvard University, and against the University of North Carolina. I suspect that the Supreme Court will rule that affirmative action as it is currently practiced is invalid, illicit. That's what I suspect the Supreme Court will say. But that's not going to be the end of the struggle by any means.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact, Professor Kennedy, that this? What do you make of the fact that as many cases as they could have chosen to hear, the route that they took was the route of addressing affirmative action in education. What do you make of that reality?
Well, education has been the sort of the lightning rod. I mean, if you think about the first big affirmative action cases, they all involved higher education. I mean, the most important one, of course, came from the University of California at Davis Medical School, in the Bakke decision in the 1970s. So education has been quite central, and not just education. Remember that affirmative action really applies to just a small slice of higher education. Now, it's an important slice of higher education. It's the most elite slice of higher education. So, all of the affirmative action cases, what do they involve? They involve medical schools. They involve law schools. They involve the selective universities. These are the most coveted places, and that's where the fight has been most intense.
Yeah. For those who have not had a chance to read your provocative, powerful, and brilliant piece, it's all that and then some. Once again, it's a New York Times piece. You can find it for yourself. It's called "The Truth Is Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead." If you don't read but one thing today, I highly recommend that in your reading today, you peruse this piece written by our guest, Randall Kennedy, professor at Harvard Law. For those who haven't had a chance to read it yet, Randall Kennedy, just unpack what you were trying to express in the essay.
What I was trying to express was a very straightforward point, and that point is that throughout American history, every time that there has been any effort put forward to advance black people, it has been met with claims of reverse discrimination, claims that black people are seeking some sort of special, wrongful privilege. And it's really quite striking. So the first thing I note is that, in the age of slavery, in the 1830s, John C. Calhoun, senator from South Carolina, confronts abolitionists on the floor of the Senate. And he says, you abolitionists, you want to do away with slavery. But what you really want to do is you want to put the blacks on top. You want to make blacks the masters and whites the slaves. Now we look at this now and we laugh. We think, oh, this is nuts. How can, in the middle of slavery, how can this man be talking about, reverse discrimination? You want to make the blacks the masters. He said it, and he wasn't alone in saying it. If you think of, and then in my piece, I just go through American history and show where this has come up over and over. My favorite example, I put favorite in quotation marks, of course, is the Civil Rights Act of 1866. People ought to remember that the first federal civil rights law in the United States was the Civil Rights Act of 1866. What did it say? It said that all persons shall have the right, on the same terms as white persons, to own property, to enter into contracts, to sue and be sued, to serve as witnesses in litigation. That's all it said. This was vetoed by the President of the United States, Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson succeeded Abraham Lincoln to the presidency. There was one other thing. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 also said that all persons born in the United States would become citizens of the United States. And they passed these. They passed this law. Why? They passed the law because in the infamous Dred Scott case, the Supreme Court of the United States said that black people could not become federal citizens of the United States. And then after the Civil War, the southern states, the former Confederate states, passed black codes that tried to reduce black people back to a state of semi-slavery. And it was for that reason that the Congress tried to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1866.
Right.
Well, it was vetoed initially by the president, Andrew Johnson. What did he say? He said, this gives discriminating protection to the Negro. He said, we're treating Negroes better than we are treating good, Europeans who have come, who are immigrants to this country. Reverse discrimination, favoritism. This is in 1866. This is in 1866.
Yeah.
Slavery has just been abolished a minute before. Yet we're confronting these allegations of reverse discrimination.
I always learn when I read your writings, of course, and listen to you in conversations like these, and I didn't realize how far back the term reverse discrimination went. I thought it was a more relatively new creation, relatively new. I'm using your quotes now and put my air quotes here, but I didn't know it went back that far. But it was stunning for me to read the history of this nonsensical argument called reverse discrimination. When we come forward with Harvard Law Professor Randall Kennedy, we'll talk more about why it is that every time this nation decides to take one step forward when it comes to race, we take two steps backwards. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Sunday, June 18th, come out to Africatown in Lamert Park for the Juneteenth Independence Revolution commemoration. The Independence Revolution will be part of a 3-day weekend to celebrate Juneteenth. Join in the national hashtag Wave of Freedom, where Black people across the country will stand in solidarity to demand reparations for Black American descendants of slavery. Hear from the frontline organizations who are fighting for better conditions for Black LA. Bring your dad to be part of the Honor Thy Fathers ceremony, which will acknowledge dozens of Black fathers in the community. See performances from some of LA's top local artists. Shop with a variety of local Black merchants selling food, clothes, art, and more. The Juneteenth Independence Revolution is a free event for the entire family. Sunday, June 18th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., come to Africatown in Lamert Park to celebrate Black Independence Day. The Juneteenth Independence Revolution is brought to you by Africatown Enterprise, the African Village Vendors Association at Lamert Park, Black Lives Matter LA, Downtown Crenshaw, and Destination Crenshaw.
Hey Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
If you have certain chronic conditions, such as heart disease,
asthma,
diabetes, and you're 19 years of age or older,
52, 36,
42, you may be at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most commonly reported side effect was pain at the injection site. For additional common side effects and full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
I'm going to ask my doctor about getting vaccinated
with Prevnar 20.
Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win. Sometimes we try to fit it all in. Sometimes we don't know what's in store. Sometimes we find what we're looking for. Sometimes we're rolling easy and free. Sometimes 1 and 1 makes 3. So much to love.
Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
It does indeed, with Harvard Law professor Randall Kennedy, who has written a powerful and provocative piece in the New York Times called "The Truth Is, Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead." I encourage you to read this piece when you get a moment because it really unpacks the backstory, if you will, of the argument at least, of reverse discrimination in this country. I learned a great deal about it myself, and I always want to share with you whatever information I learned anew. And so, again, I recommend the piece, "The Truth Is, Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead" by Randall Kennedy of Harvard Law School. In the 10 minutes I have left here between now and the top of the hour, let me cover as much ground as I can, Professor Kennedy. Let me start with this. When I read your piece some days ago, I thought about my dear friend, now departed, Harry Belafonte. Mr. B and I were together around the time of, at the moment, in fact, of Barack Obama's election, speaking of Harvard Law, Obama's election. And he said to me then that while he celebrated the moment, he knew there was going to be a backlash. He had lived long enough to know that the election of this Negro, this black man, to be president of these United States meant that it was just a matter of time before there'd be a major backlash. That backlash, as you know, came in a variety of different ways, a variety of different packages, but principal among them was the election later, of course, of Donald Trump. Given all the Donald Trump drama we are in the midst of right now, Trump's election, I will believe till I die, was in large measure a response to the election of one Barack Obama. So I thought about that when I read your piece. I'm asking this question not out of any naivete, but what is it about this nation that says it wants to live up to its best ideals, and yet every time, to your point, we take one step forward with regard to race, we take a couple backwards? Why is that? What's that about?
Couple things. First of all, I think that you're absolutely right about the reaction to President Obama. I think that a lot of what has happened in the past 8 years is mass derangement at the spectacle of a black family in the White House. I think that there are millions of Americans who were driven literally crazy by that sight. And I think that, frankly, for the rest of my life, I'll be dealing and we'll be dealing with that. I think that you're absolutely correct. I think that Harry Belafonte was being very wise. He showed a lot more wisdom, frankly, than people like myself. I was a big supporter of Barack Obama's, and I was very hopeful. I was there at the inauguration. I remember that morning. I looked out at that mass of people, and I thought, oh, my God, I'm here. The page has been turned in America. I have to say that was my belief. That was my belief. Unfortunately, as we have seen, that's not the case. Why is it? There are two great forces there's several great forces, but for our purposes, there's the anti-racism camp, which is a very powerful camp, the camp that was against slavery, the camp that was in favor of racial decency. There's a strong impulse in America for that. But there is also a deep, deep force that is in favor of racial subordination, is in favor of racial hierarchy. And if you ask, why is it that when we take a step forward, people think, oh my gosh, something is wrong? Well, it's because, people have become habituated to racism. They've become habituated to whites on top, blacks on the bottom. And when that changes, even a little bit when that changes, people, say, oh my God, something bad has happened. Yeah. And that's where we are.
Let me watching my clock here, 5 minutes. I want to cover a bit more ground here. Let me make you not feel so alone, so isolated on this island. I was wrong about something too. You were wrong by your own admission about this new page in America. I was wrong, with all due respect to Barack Obama. I supported him not once but twice, just like you and everybody else I know, because specifically Randy Kennedy, I thought that his election, I hoped at least his election, even though he wasn't as progressive as I wanted him to be personally, I hoped that his election would at least unleash progressive possibilities. That's why I supported him. I hope this election would unleash progressive possibilities. That did not happen. Not only did we not unleash progressive possibilities, we now find ourselves with the Supreme Court and other institutions of power in this country that are about the business now of shrinking rights rather than expanding rights. How do you read that reality in this moment?
Well, unfortunately, that is our reality. And when you talk about the Supreme Court, I mean, we're talking about a Supreme Court that is the most reactionary Supreme Court in memory. And, the newspapers say, suggest that the Supreme Court is, sort of newly conservative. That's not true. Mm-hmm. We've had a conservative Supreme Court since the late 1960s. What we have now is a thoroughly reactionary Supreme Court. And it's not going to be our friend. It's not going to be our friend for a long time. My hope is that it doesn't become even more reactionary.
Take a point from Randall Kennedy. I love it. We've had conservative Supreme Courts. This court is not just conservative, it is reactionary. So when you talk about this Supreme Court, use his language. It's not just conservative, it's reactionary. Those are two different things. And I take his point about hoping that it doesn't become more reactionary. But I love just teasing that out because it's a great way to talk about this court, a more accurate way to call it reactionary and not just conservative. In these last couple of minutes, let me close by asking you, Professor Kennedy, about the viability of any of these so-called race-neutral alternatives and the challenges they may face once this Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action.
It's a good question. We'll get a hint later, probably later this week when the Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action. Here's the issue. There's some people who say that let's get rid of explicit references to race. You can try to have a more diverse student body or workforce, but you have to do it through so-called race-neutral criteria. Mm-hmm. Maybe class, zip code, that sort of thing. And there's some people who say that, and they're good people. There are good people who say that, and what they want to do is they want to pursue racial diversity through indirect means. Here's the problem. There are going to be some people on the right who are going to say, listen, that's just covered up, racial consciousness. You're just using zip codes. You're just using class as a pretext for continuing to try to help out black people. And so, the race neutral means maybe it'll go through, maybe the courts will allow it, but maybe not. I think that we're going to see a fight over so-called race-neutral strategies for getting to racial diversity.
I always love being in conversation with Randall Kennedy. This half hour wasn't long enough, but we'll have him back, I promise. But I didn't want the time to get too far away from me where I could bring your attention again to this powerful piece he wrote in the New York Times. Look it up and read it, please. It's called "The Truth Is, Many Americans Just Don't Want Black People to Get Ahead." Professor Kennedy, good to have you on. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Be well. Keep pushing.
All right, same to you. When we come forward in our next hour here on KBLA Talk 1580, a conversation with Hector Tobar. I've been looking forward to this. He has a new book out called Pulitzer Prize winner, of course, brilliant writer, Our Migrant Souls, a meditation on race and the meanings and myths of Latino. We'll talk about if you've ever been concerned about what words to use. Is it Latino? Is it Hispanic? Is it Chicano? Is it Latinx? There's a lot in this mix that we'll talk about with Hector Tobar when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Today is the 7th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub massacre in Florida. A gunman killed, 49 people and injured 53 more. Their lives will be commemorated with an event in Orlando tonight. The shooting is the deadliest incident in the history of violence against the LGBTQ community in the United States. African-American rapper Kanye West is being sued over a photo he posted on social media. West recently criticized an editor at Vogue named Gabriella Carifa Johnson and posted her picture to allow her work to be used by other people. And that's the latest. I'm Mike